the first time I met Leanie was end of June 1980, when I had a really curious and quite humorous letter from him, and he sent me a grain of sweet corn. He'd already twigged that I'd caught the fish on sweet corn.
Right.
I don't know how, because I hadn't met him until then.
This is after the capture of the
This
record.
is the week after I caught the record.
Yeah.
What was the new record, and he said in the letter, love to hear about it. You know, it's one of mine. I need to know, and why don't you come round? I'm only 3 miles away. I didn't realise he lived so near. You could even get here on a bicycle in sort of half an hour, and that's what I did. I went round on my own old postman's bike, and he was a wonderful.
And he lived at where?
Sorry,
this isn't being filmed, so it doesn't matter to me. Only for transcribing. He lived at where?
Oh, he lived in Hazelmere, which is on the Sussex-Surrey border, in this lovely 15th century house called Springhead, and he'd been there since I think 1930s, before the war, and we met. He was then he still had his, I can't remember the name of his wife, it's terrible, but she was still there, and Mrs. Packham was the housekeeper who looked after everything, and she was older than he was probably 83. In fact, I remember in the letter, rising 83, he said.
Okay.
And in
You
the letter,
haven't got the letter, have you?
Probably, yeah.
You know the next question. Anyway, carry on.
And Mrs. Packham met me at the door, and she was lovely, you know, typical sort of housekeeper, floral kind of apron on. He said, "Mr. Leanie's waiting for you in the study. Go through the corridor, and turn left at the end." And I always remember, as I knocked on the door, that yes, it was quite a sort of stentorian voice. "Mind the step." I know he didn't say mind the step. Step. Because you had to go up onto a step, and every time I came, following that for almost 10 years, I'd come down the corridor and he would just say step, and apparently several people had fallen over with cups of tea and things like that on the way into the study. But so that was always the entrance. So instead of a bell going, it was him calling out to mind the step, and we sat down at a. He was sitting in his study, and he was sitting in his chair by his desk, and I sat in a chair next to him, and he just said, "Right, tell me about it." So I was telling him about the fish, and obviously how grateful I was to him, because if that wasn't for him, you know, I wouldn't have caught this wonderful creature. And we just spent that. We soon went off the subject and went on to other waters and other things, and he was universal in his knowledge. He could talk about anything, but he would also talk about it in a really kind of, you know, a interesting way. He would be not wanting to show off his knowledge. He was just happy to be sharing, you know, his favourite subjects, whatever they were. But carp, and his favourite fish were carp and golden tench. Because he asked me what my favourites were, and I said, well, carp, obviously. And I had a couple others. I liked chub, and one day I was going to catch a barbel. I'd not caught a barbel then. But I said, that's all I'm really interested in at the moment. And so, what are yours? And he said, I've always had a great affection for carp and for tench, particularly golden tench, and I thought that's nice and quirky, and we just went on, and we spoke until late in the evening. Mrs. Packham came in a couple of times with cakes that just out of the oven and another tray of tea, and I gave him the full story, and he was just delighted.
And did you know about the Ledgers at that stage? Did you know about the Ledgers when you went to see him? No. I just knew that they were. You know, he was famous for having stocked so many waters. Yeah. So I was aware of that, but I didn't know he had the Ledgers. He'd kept the Ledgers because they went back to the 1920s. Yeah. Yeah. So how did they come up? How did that subject come up then?
he died 1987 when I'd moved from Haslemere. He was living in Haslemere. I was living in Greyshot, which was 3 miles away, in a nice little cottage on the edge of a wood, and I'd moved here, which is 60 miles from Haslemere, and his son phoned up, Michael, and told me he'd died, and I was very sad to hear that, because he was by the time I'd left Vale Cottage, he'd become a great friend. I used to see him almost every other week, sometimes
Really?
once a week. Yeah. He just liked to hear what was going on in the countryside, and because it would spark his own boyhood memories, because I felt myself as still a boy then, and even though I was in my 20s, but he was no, I wasn't. I was 30. Get a grip. But he looked at me like a young lad,
which you weren't. But
yeah.
Look, I still looked on him as a boy. Yeah. He's in his 50s now.
So yes, he'd become, and he was very disappointed when I said, "I'm sorry, I'm going to have to move. I'm going to have to go further west, because that's where the barbel are." And he'd always been suspicious of my enthusiasm for barbels. He said if you start fishing for those fish, it's going to take you further away. And he kind of gave me the impression that I too had become a good friend to him, and that he would be disappointed if I wasn't coming on my regular. It was fortnightly. It wasn't actually weekly, but sometimes it was weekly. It was never a strict time. He'd just phone up, or I'd phone him, and "You in Thursday?" "Oh yes, do come. It was very clipped. It was very, and then once we got talking, he would get more and more involved in whatever the subject was, and he was a fascinating character. Didn't want to talk about the war though. He was a major,
I think, and as a lot of people don't like to.
And he was there. One of the commanders as they went in on D-Day.
Was he?
And he had nightmares about it still, he said.
A great loss to life. So, are you saying you didn't know about the Ledgers until after he died?
No, I don't think he... as far as I can remember, I don't think he remembered them. He didn't think that was the... I mean, we talked about when he was stocking them, all these waters, like... Dagenham and Ashley, and was there Ashley? No, I don't think he stocked Ashley, but all those waters that some in Lincolnshire, all over the country, Frensham.
This is where my lines cross, because Chris Ball found Frensham from the Ledgers, because Jan Wensker has done a tribute to Chris in the last supplement. And he mentions that they found this Leanie water from the Ledgers, and fished it, caught those incredible fish, which you went and photographed Chris's 3-0 fish on your postman bike. Turned out, which meant it was near. But they found that from the Ledgers, which would be early 80s.
Yes, it was 82. That would have been.
Yeah. So the Ledgers were known about.
Yeah, maybe I must have seen a pile of them in the study, and I don't remember him opening a page and saying, "Look at this and look at this," but yes, there were so many occasions when I had an opportunity, but it doesn't. I'm not recording it in my memory. It's because there was so much. Books, wonderful. He would lend me books. He never lent me the Ledgers, even though I'd have been interested to go home with one of them, never skim through them. But I was more interested in the natural history books he had, because like me, he was very keen on reptiles when he was young, and I too was mad about, still am, grass snakes and adders and things like that.
So Chris Ball must have gone to him direct then.
I think, and I do know that we talked about that. He said, would it be possible to get to just go and see him? I said, well. Right, and I think I do remember him saying, "Well, when you catch your record carp, you'll get an invitation from Donald Leney."
Oh, right, okay.
And because I said that's the only way, and then he looked at me quite seriously. I said, "Don't be silly, I'm sure if you just phone up and say that I've given you his number, he'll be happy, because I remember I took my friend Parker there, who was one of the Golden Scale Club people, still is, and they got on incredibly well, and Parker did have to go back a couple of times, and just he said, I've got to see that. He's such a fascinating character. Do you think it'd be all right if I just go back on my own, because I couldn't meet him to take him back there? And I said, of course, he'll be happy to see you. So he was a very what's the word? He was always accommodating. He was always warm-hearted, and he was a very warm personality. And I loved him almost like a father at the end.
And did you ever take a picture of him?
Never.
Okay.
No.
I think
no, I couldn't do that.
That's one. Yeah.
Being a photographer, I couldn't do that.
Oh, really?
It was. I've still got my camera. I only just found it in a gas mask bag. It's been there for 10 years. I haven't used it for 10 years. No, 5 years. But yes, it would have been too much of an operation.
Yeah. Oh, I've got you. Got you. So the picture of Chris Ball with them, or Chris Ball's references to them, and then Skeff's. Chris was Derbyshire then, and Mark Walsingham was Skeff. They were both in possession of them at one time from you. They borrowed some from you.
Yeah.
Fine. And then you obviously took them all back at some stage.
Yeah, because after he died, Michael, his son, had just said, we've got all the records here.
Great.
I don't want them. You're welcome to come and collect them if you like.
Wow.
And as you can see, there's quite a lot of them.
Yeah.
And I've never been through them all.
No.
But
no,
because it'd take too long. But it's lovely to have that history there.
But you see, what I feel is, because Hutchie used to talk about carp thriving on neglect, and it is still possible that there is another hidden Redmar in those ledgers to me.
I've never, even without the ledgers, I absolutely know there are still hidden Redmars, because I've fished 2 or 3 of them in the last 5 years.
Right.
But I haven't really been carp fishing much. And but I'm still interested in the lakes. I still go, and every spring I'll wander about one of these lovely old lakes. And
because until they come under pressure, 50, 60 years old isn't old for a carp, is it?
Yeah.
No, they can live to those ages. So there might still be a huge Leanie. And I know the strain is weakening because of stockings and the rest of it. But there might still be, it's like the Wildy thing, isn't it? There might still be pure Leanies and big Leanies.
Well, it's just
and unfished for.
6 miles down the road, or no, 4 miles down the road from here, is that water that was owned by Lord Shaftesbury, that was stocked by Leanie, and it was lovely to see the entry. When we did Passion for Angling, we actually filmed the book with that entry in, and it was 1935, 36, I think, and it was just, I think it was just 50 carp again, like Redmar. And there was that one particular fish that we did see in the end, Harry, and that was definitely 50 plus, maybe 60 plus.
And was this the monster water in Passion for Angling?
Yeah.
Oh, was it? That's just 6 miles.
10 minutes. 10 minutes down the road.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
And no one had ever fished it.
No.
Until Hugh Miles wrote a letter to Lord Shaftesbury, and it was a great letter. And I thought, I have to remember this, the words he used, and it was. I mean, obviously he was saying this. We're going to make a drama out of this.
Yeah.
We're going to make a very beautiful sort of not a drama, but a beautiful story about this.
Right.
Out of this, but yes, it's just it was.
So I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that. And when I mentioned the museum, obviously changed your mind slightly about where you would like them, because obviously they're worth a lot of money, and I think what you've done, you said it was a generous offer that I made, but I think it's generous on your part, because funny enough, John Seal has sent an email and copied me, referring to them as the Dead Sea Scrolls of carp fishing, which was exactly the analogy that come to my mind, when I knew that they were available. And they will be part of the records of the carp.
No, it needs to go to a sort of carp fishing centre, as it were, somewhere where carp fishermen can go and just
Absolutely.
look and then and handle them with care, with white gloves, as if you're in a
Oh, we'll
British
do that.
museum.